Welcome to this book called Percy Jackson. I'll be reading you Chapter 13. In the Percy Jackson series, the 9th book, the Blood of Olympus, it says on the front cover. I'll be reading you Chapter 8, Niko. If not, click to go down. There's a blue dot with a white pin. Click it, and you find the other one. Then try and read 1 to 3. Then 4 to 6. 46, and then I don't know, 4 to 30, 4 to 12, something to 12, and then read this one, Niko. And so I'll be starting the book now while you do it, or if not, listen. Chapter 8, Niko. The last thing Niko heard was Coach Hedge grumbling. Well, this isn't good. He wondered what he'd done wrong this time. Maybe he teleported them into a den of cyclopses, or 1,000 feet above another volcano. There was nothing he could do about it. His vision was gone. His other senses were shutting down. His knees buckled and he passed out. He tried to make the most of his unconsciousness. Dreams and death were old friends of his. He knew how to navigate the dark borderland. He set out his thoughts, searching for Thalia Grace. He rushed past the usual fragments of painful memories. His mother smiled down at him, her face illuminated by the sunlight rippling of the Venetian Grand Canal. His sister Bianca laughing as she pulled him across the mall in Washington, D.C., her green floppy hat shading her eyes and the splashes of freckles across her nose. He saw Percy Jackson on the snow cliff outside Westover Hill, shielding Niko and Bianca from the Minotaur as Niko clutched a mythomadic figure and whispered, "I'm scared." He saw Minos, his old ghostly mentor, leading him through the labyrinth. Minos' smile was cold and cruel. "Don't worry, son of Hades. You will have your revenge." Niko couldn't stop the memories. They cluttered his dreams like the ghost of Aspold, an aimless sorrow mob pleading for attention. "Save me," they whispered. "Remember me. Help me. Help me. Come for me." He didn't dare stop to dwell on them. They would only crush him with wants and regrets. The best he could do was to stay focused and push through. "I am the son of Hades. I am the son of Hades," he thought. "I go where I wish. The darkness is my birthright. He forged ahead through grey and black terrain, looking for the dreams of Thalia Grace, daughter of Zeus. Instead, the ground dissolved at his feet, and he fell into a familiar backwater, the hypnosis cabin at Camp Half-Blood. Buried under piles of feather comforters, snoring demigods nestled in their bunks. Above the mantel, a dark tree branch dripping milky water from the river Leith into a bowl. A cheerful fire crackled in the fireplace. In front of it, in a leather armchair, dozed the head counselor for Cabin 15, a pot-bellied guy with unruly blonde hair and gentle bone face. "Close it," Niko growled. For God's sake, stop dreaming so powerfully." Clovis's eyes fluttered open. He turned and stared at Niko, though Niko knew this was simply part of Clovis's own dreamscape. The actual Clovis would still be snoring in his armchair back at camp. "Oh, hi." Clovis yawned wide enough to swallow a minor god. "Sorry, did I pull you off course again?" Niko gritted his teeth. There was no point getting upset. The Hypnos cabin was like a grand central station for dream activity. You can travel anywhere without going through it once in a while. "As long as I'm here," Niko said, "pass along a message. Tell Chiron I'm on my way with a couple of friends. We're bringing the Athena Parthenus." Clovis rubbed her eyes. So it's true. How are you bringing it? Did you rent a van or something? Niko explained as concisely as possible. Messages sent through dreams tended to get fuzzy around the edges, and especially when you're dealing with Clovis. The simpler the better. We're being followed by a hunter, Niko said. One of Jay's guardians. I think can you get that message to Thalia? Grace? You're better at finding people in dreams than I am. I need her advice. I'll try. Chloe fumbled for a cup of hot chocolate on the side table. Before you go, do you have a second? Clovis, this is a dream, Niko reminded him. Time is fluid. Even as he said it, Niko worried about what was happening in the real world. His physical self might be plummeting to his death or surrounded by monsters. Still, he couldn't force himself to wake up. Not after the amount of energy he'd expended on shadow travel. Clovis nodded. Right. I was thinking you should probably see what happened today at the Council of War. I slipped through some of it, but show me, Niko said. The scene changed. Niko found herself in the rec room of the big house. All the senior camp leaders gathered around the ping-pong table. At one end sat Chai in the centre. His equine posture collapsed into his magic wheelchair, so he looked like a regular human. His curly brown hair and beard had more grey streaks than a few months ago. Deep lines etched his face. Things we can't control, he was saying. Now let's review our defences. Where do we stand? Clarice from the Ares cabin sat forward. She was the only one in full armour, which was typical. Clarice probably slept in her combat gear as she spoke. As she spoke, she gestured with her dagger, which made the other councillors lean away from her. Our defence is mostly solid, she said. The campers are as ready to fight as they'll ever be. We control the beat. Our triremes are unchallenged on Long Island Sound, but those stupid giant eagles dominate our airspace. Inland, all three directions. The barbarians have us completely cut off. They're Romans, said Rachel there, doodling with a marker on her knee of her jeans. Not barbarians. Chad pointed her dagger at Rachel. What about their allies, huh? Do you see that tribe of 200 men that arrived yesterday? All the glowing red dog-headed guys with the big pole axes? They look pretty barbaric to me. It would have been nice if you foreseen any of that. If your oracle power didn't break down when we needed it most. Rachel's face turned as red as her hair. It's hardly my fault. Something is wrong with Apollo's gift of prophecy. If I knew how to fix it, she's right. Will Solus, head counsel for the Apollo cabin, put his hand gently on Clarice's wrist. Not many campers couldn't done that without getting stabbed. But Will had a way of diffusing people's anger. He got her to lower her dagger. Everyone in the cabin has been affected. It's not just Rachel. Will Solus is more like a lanky cat, stretched out in the sunshine. His movements, stretched out in the sunshine. His movements were relaxed and non-threatening. His gaze soft and far away. In his faded surf Barbados t-shirt, surf Barbados t-shirt. In his surf Barbados t-shirt, In surf Barbados t-shirt, his cut-off shorts and flip-flops, He looked about as unaggressive as a demigod could get, but Niko knew he was brave under fire. During the Battle of Manhattan, Niko had seen him in action. The camp's best combat medic, risking his life to save wounded campers. We don't know what's going on at Delphi, Will continued. My dad hasn't answered any prayers or appeared in any dreams. I mean, all the gods have been silent, but this isn't like Apollo. Something's wrong. Across the table, Jake Mason grunted. Probably this Roman dirtwipe who's leading the attack. Octavian, what's his name? Octavian, what's his name? If I was Apollo and my decent was acting that way, I'd go into hiding out of shame. I agree, Will said. I wish I was a better archer. I wouldn't mind shooting my Roman relative of his higher horse. Actually, I wish I could use any of my father's gifts to stop this war. He looked down at his own hands with distaste. Unfortunately, I'm just a healer. Your talents are essential, Tyrant said. I fear... Sorry. I fear we'll need them soon enough. As for seeing the future, what about the harpy Ella? Has he offered any advice from the Sibylline books? Rachel shook her head. The poor thing is scared out of her wits. Harpies hate being imprisoned. Ever since the Romans surrounded us, well, she feels trapped. She knows Octavian means to capture us. Means to capture her. It's all Tyson, and I can do to keep her from flying away. Which will be suitable? Butch Walker, son of Iris, crossed his burly arms. With those Roman eagles in the air, flying isn't safe. I've already lost 2 Pegasi. At least Tyson brought some of his Cyclops friends to help out, Rachel said. That's a little good news. Over by the refreshment table, Connor Stoll laughed. He had a fistful of Ritz's crackers in one hand and a can of easy teas in the other. A dozen full-grown Cyclops. That's a lot of good news. Plus, Lou Ellen and their cake kids have been putting up magic barriers, and the whole Hermes cabin has been lining the hills with traps and snares and all kind of nice surprises for the Romans. Jake Mason frowned, most of which you stole from Bunker 9 and Hephaestus cabin. Clarice grumbled in agreement. They even stole the landmines from around the Ares cabin. How do you steal live landmines? We commanded them for the war effort. Connor sprayed a globe of easy teas into his mouth. Besides, you guys have plenty of toys. You can share. Tyrion turned to his left, where the satyr Grover Underwood sat in silence, fingering his red pipes. Grover, what news from the nature spirits? Grover heaved a sigh. Even on a good day, it's hard to organize nymphs and dryads with the gayer stirring. They're almost as disoriented as the gods. Katie and Miranda from the Demeter cabin are out there right now trying to help. But if the Earth Mother wakes, he looked around the table nervously. Well, I can't promise the woods will be safe, or the hills, or the strawberry fields, or... Great. Jake Mason elbowed Clovis, who was starting to nod off. So what do we do? Attack! 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 Clarice pounded the ping-pong table, which made everyone flinch. The Romans are getting more reinforcements by the day. We know they plan to invade on August 1st. Why should we let them set the timetable? I can only guess they're waiting to gather more forces. They already outnumber us. We should attack now before they get any stronger. Take the fight to them. Malcolm, the acting head councillor for Athena, coughed into his fist. Class, I get your point, but you have studied Roman engineering. The temporary camp is better defended than Camp Half-Blood. Attacking them at their base, we'd be massacred. So we just wait? Clarus demanded. Let them get all their forces prepared while Gaia gets closer to Waken. I have Coach Hedge's pregnant wife under my protection. I am not going to let anything happen to her. I owe Hedge my life. Besides, I've been training the campers more than you have, Malcolm. The morale is low. Everybody is sacred. If we're under siege another 9 days, we should stick to Annabeth's plan. Connor Stoll looked as serious as he ever did. Despite the easy cheese around his mouth, we have to hold until she gets that magic Athena statue back here. Flowers rolled her eyes. You mean if that Roman praetor gets the statue back here? I don't understand what Annabeth was thinking. Collaborating with the enemy? Even if the Roman manages to bring us the statue, which is impossible, we're supposed to trust that will bring peace. The statue arrives, and suddenly the Romans lay down their weapons and start dancing around throwing flowers. Rachel set down her marking pen, and when Annabeth knows what she's doing, we have to try for peace. Unless we can unite the Greeks and Romans, the gods won't be healed. Unless the gods are healed, there is no way we can kill the giants. And unless we kill the giants... Gale wakes, Connor said. Game over. Look, Clarus. Annabeth sent me a message from Tartarus. From frickin' Tartarus. Anybody could do that. Hey, I listened to them. Clarus opened her mouth to reply. When she spoke, it was Coach Hedge's voice. Niko, wake up. We've got problems. Chapter 14. Niko sat up quickly. His head burned the satyr in the nose. Ow, gee. He head-butted the satyr in the nose. Ow, jeez, kid, you've got a hard noggin. So sorry, Coach. Niko blinked, trying to get his bearings. What's going on? He didn't see any immediate threat. They were camped on a sunny lawn in the middle of a public square. Beds of orange marigold. Sorry, I just closed the book. Have I got too far? Sorry, He didn't see any immediate threat. They were camped on a sunny lawn in the middle of a public square. Beds of orange marigolds bloomed all around them. Raina was sleeping curled up, with her 2 metal dogs at her feet. A stone's throw away, little kids played tag around a white marble fountain at a nearby pavement cave. Half a dozen people sipped coffee in the shade of patio umbrellas. A few delivery vans were parked along the edges of the square, but there was no traffic. The only pedestrians were a few families, probably locals, enjoying a warm afternoon. The square itself was paved with cobblestones, edged with white stucco buildings and lemon trees. In the centre stood the well-preserved shell of a Roman temple. Its square base stretched, maybe 50 feet wide and 10 feet tall, with an intact facade of Corinthian columns rising another 20 feet. And at the top of the colonnade, Niko's mouth went dry. Oh, Stikes! The Athena Parthenos lay sideways on the tops of the columns like a nightclub singer sprawled across a piano. Lengthwise, she fitted almost perfectly, but with Nike in her extended hand, she was a bit too wide. She looked like she might topple forward at any moment. What is she doing up there? Niko asked. You tell me. Head rubbed his bruised nose. That's where we appeared. Almost fell to our deaths, but luckily I got nibble hooves. You were unconscious, hanging in your harness like a tangled paratrooper until we managed to get you down. Niko tried to picture that, then decided he'd rather not. Is this Spain? Portugal, Head said. You overshot. By the way, Reina speaks Spanish. She does not speak Portuguese. Anyway, while you were asleep, we figured out this city is Aurora. Good news, it's a sleepy little place. Nobody bothered us. Nobody seems to notice the giant Athena sleeping on top of the Roman temple, which is called the Temple of Diana. In case you're wondering, and people here appreciate my street performances, I've made about 16 euros. He picked up his baseball cap, which jangled with the coins. Niko felt ill. Street performances? A little singing, the coach said. A little martial arts. Some interpretive dance. Wow! I know. The Portuguese have taste. Anyway, I supposed that this was a decent place to lie down for a couple of days. Niko stared at him. A couple of days? Hey, kid, we don't have much choice. In case you haven't noticed, you've been working yourself to death with all that shadow jumping. We tried to wake you up last night. No dice. So I've been asleep for about 36 hours? You needed it. Niko was glad he was sitting down, otherwise he would have fallen down. He could have sworn he only slept a few minutes, but as his drowsiness faded, he realized he felt more clear-headed and rested than he had in weeks. Maybe since before he was looking for the doors of death. His stomach growled. Coach Hedge raised his eyebrows. You must be hungry, said the satyr. Either that or your stomach speaks hedgehog. That was quite a statement in hedgehog. Food would be good, Niko agreed. But first, what's the bad news? I mean, aside from the statue being sideways, you said we had trouble. Oh, right. The coach pointed to a gated archway at the corner of the square, standing in the shadows, with a glowing, vaguely human figure outlined in grey flames. The spirit's features were indistinct, but it seems to be becoming to Niko. Burning Man showed up a few minutes ago, said Coach H. He doesn't get any closer. When I tried to go over there, he disappeared. Not sure if he's a threat, but he seems to be asking for you. Niko assumed it was a trap. Most things were. But Coach had promised he could guard Reina for a little longer, and on the off chance the spirit had something useful to say, Niko decided it was worth the risk. He unsheathed his iron blade and approached the archway. Normally ghosts didn't scare him, assuming, of course. Gaia had encased them in shells of stone and turned them into kenning machines. That had been a newer one for him. After his experience with Midas, Niko realized that most spectres held only as much power as you allowed them to have. They pried into your mind using fear or anger or longingly to influence you. Niko had learned to shield himself. Sometimes he could even turn the table and bend ghosts to his will. As he approached the a grey apparition, he was fairly sure it was a garden variety wraith, a lost soul who had died in pain. Should be a problem. Still, Niko took nothing for granted. He remembered Croatia all too well. He'd got into a situation smug and confident, only to have his feet swept out from under his literary and emotional. First, Jason Grace had grabbed him and thrown him over a wall. Then the god's Favonius had dissolved him into wind. And as for that arrogant thug, Cupid. Niko clenched his sword. Sharing a secret crush hadn't been the worst of it. Eventually, he might have done in his own time in his own way. But being forced to talk about Percy, being bullied and hassled and strong-armed simply for Cupid's amusement, tendrils of darkness were now spreading out from his feet, killing all the weeds between the cobblestones. Niko tried to rein his anger. When he reached the ghost, he saw it wore a monkey's habit, sandals, woolen robes, and a wooden cross around his neck. Grey flames swirled around him, burning his sleeves, blistering his face, turning his eyebrows to ashes, and seemed to be stuck in the moment of his immolation, like a black and white video on a permanent loop. You were burned alive, Niko sensed. Probably in the Middle Ages. The ghost's face distorted in a silent scream of agony, but his eyes looked bored, even a little annoyed, as if the scream was just an automatic reflex he can control. What do you want of me? Niko asked. The ghost gestured for Niko to follow. It turned and walked through the open gateway. Niko glanced back at the coach edge. The satin made a shooing gesture like, go, do your underworld thing. Niko trailed the ghost through the streets of Evora. They zigzagged through narrow cobblestones, walkways past courtyards with potted hibiscus trees and white stucco buildings with butterscotch trim and wrought iron balconies. No one noticed the ghost, but the locals looked askance at Niko. A young girl with a fox terrier crossed the street to avoid him. Her dog growled, the hair on its back, standing straight up like a dorsal fin. The ghost led Niko to another public square, anchored at one end by a large square church with whitewashed walls and limestone arches. The ghost passed through the portico and disappeared inside. Niko hesitated. He had nothing against churches, but this one radiated death. Inside would be tombs, or perhaps something less pleasant. He ducked through the doorway. His eyes were drawn to the side chapel, lit from within by eerie golden light. Carved over the door was a Portuguese inscription. Niko didn't speak the language, but he remembered the childhood Italian well enough to glean the general meaning. We the bones that are here await yours. Cheery, he muttered. He entered the chapel. At the far end stood an altar where the fiery wraith knelt in prayer. But Niko was more interested in the room itself. The walls were constructed of bones and skulls, thousands upon thousands cemented together. Columns of bones held up a vaulted ceiling decorated with images of death. On one wall, like coats on a coat rack, hung the desiccated skeletal remains of two people, an adult and a small child. A beautiful room, isn't it? Niko turned. A year ago, he would have jumped out of his skin in his father's. Suddenly appeared next to him. Now Niko was able to control his heart rate, along with his desire to knee his father in the groan and run away. Like the wraith, Hades was dressed in the habit of a Franciscan monk, which Niko found vulgarly disturbing. His black robes were tied at the waist with a simple white cord. His cowl was pushed back, revealing the dark hair shorn close to the scalp, and eyes that glittered like a frozen tar. The god's expression was calm and content, as if he'd just come home from a lovely evening, strolling through the fields of punishment, enjoying the screams of the damned. Getting some recording ideas, Niko asked. Maybe you could do your dining room in medieval monk skulls. Hades arched an eyebrow. I can never tell when you're joking. Why are you here, Father? How are you here? Hazel traced his fingers along the nearest column, leaving bleached white marks on the old bones. You're a hard mortal. You're a hard mortal to find my son. For several days I've been searching. When the scepter of Diocletian exploded, well, that got my attention. Niko felt a flush of shame. Then he felt angry for feeling ashamed. Breaking the scepter wasn't my fault. We were about to be overrun. Oh, the scepter isn't important. A relic that old. I'm surprised. You got 2 uses out of it. The explosion simply gave me some more clarity. It allowed me to pinpoint your location. I was hoping to speak to you in Pompeii, but it is so. Well, Roman, the chapel was the first place where my presence was strong enough that I could appear to you as myself. But which I mean Hades, the god of the dead, not split without the manifestation. Hades breathed in the stale, dank air. I am very drawn to this place. The remains of 5,000 monks who were used to build the chapel of bones. It serves as reminder that life is only short and death is eternal. I feel focused here. Even so, I only have a few moments. Story of our relationship, Niko thought. You only ever have a few moments. So tell me, Father, what do you want? Hades clasped his hand together in the sleeve of his robes. Can you entertain the notion that I might be here to help you, not simply because I want something? Niko almost laughed, but his chest felt too hollow. I can entertain the notion that you might be here for multiple reasons. The god frowned. I suppose that's fair enough. You seek information about Gaia's hunter? His name is Orion. Niko hesitated. He wasn't used to getting a direct answer without games or riddles or quests. Orion, like the constellation, wasn't he a friend of Artemis? He was, Hazel said, a giant born to oppose the twins, Apollo and Artemis. But much like Artemis, Orion rejected his destiny. He sought to live on his own terms. First, he tried to live among mortals as a huntsman for the king of Chios. He ran into some trouble with the king's daughter. The king had Orion blinded and exiled. Niko thought back to what Raina had told him. My friend dreamed of a hunter with glowing eyes. If Orion is blind, he was blind, Hades corrected. Shortly after his exile, Orion met Hephaestus, who took pity on the giant and crafted him mechanical eyes, even better than the originals. Orion became friends with Artemis. He was the first male ever allowed to join her hunt. But things went wrong between them. How exactly, I do not know. Orion was slain. Now he has returned as a loyal son of Gaia, ready to do her bidding. He is driven by bitterness and anger. You can understand that. Niko wanted to yell, like you know what I feel. Instead he asked, how do we stop him? You cannot, Hades said. Your only hope is to outrun him. Accomplish your quest before he reaches you. Apollo or Artemis might be able to slay him, arrows against arrows, but the twins are in no condition to aid you. Even now, Orion has your scent. His hunting pack is almost upon you. You won't have the luxury of more rest from here to Camp Half-Blood. A belt seemed to tighten around Niko's ribs. He'd felt Coach Hedge on guard duty with... He'd left Coach Hedge on guard duty with Raina asleep. I need to get back to my companions. Indeed, Hades said. But there is more. Your sister. Hades faltered. As always, the subject of Bianca lay between them like a loaded gun. deadly easy to reach, impossible to ignore. I mean your other sister, Hazel. She has discovered that one of the 7 will die. She may try to prevent this. In doing so, she may lose sight of her priorities. Niko didn't trust himself to speak. To surprise his thoughts didn't leap first to Percy. His primary concern was for Hazel, then for Jason, then for Percy and the others aboard the Argo too. They'd saved in Rome. They welcomed him aboard the ship. Niko had never allowed himself the luxury of friends, but the crew of the Argo 2 was as close as he'd ever come. The idea of any of them dying made him feel empty, like he was back in the giant's bronze jar, alone in the dark, subsisting only on the sour pomegranate seeds. Finally he asked, "Is Hazel all right?" For the moment, and the others, "Who will die?" Hazel shook his head. "Even if I were certain, I could not say. I tell you this because you are my son. You know that some deaths cannot be prevented. Some deaths should not be prevented. When the time comes, you may need to act." Niko didn't know what that meant. He didn't want to know. "My son," Hades' tone was almost gentle. "Whatever happens, you earn my respect. You brought honor to our house, when we stood together against Cronus in Manhattan. You risked my wrath to help Jackson boy, guiding him to his stakes, freeing him from my prison, pleading with me to raise the armies of Erebos to assist him. Never before have I been so harassed by one of my sons. Percy this and Percy that. I nearly blasted you to cinders." Niko took a shallow breath. The walls of the room began to tremble, dust trickling from the cracks between the bones. "I didn't do all of that just for him. I did it because the whole world was in danger." Hades allowed himself the faintest smile. But there was nothing cruel in his eyes. "I can entertain the possibility that you acted for multiple reasons. My point is this. You and I rose to the aid of Olympus because you convinced me to let go of my anger. I would encourage you to do likewise. My children are so rarely happy. I would like to see you be an exception." Niko stared at his father. He didn't know what to do with that statement. He could accept many unreal things, hordes of ghosts, magical labyrinths travelled through the shadows, chapels made of bones, but tender words from the Lord of the Underworld. No, that made no sense. Over at the altar, the fiery ghost rose. He approached, burning and screaming silently, his eyes convening some urgent message. "Ah," Hades said, "this is Brother Paloan. He's of hundreds who burned alive in the square near the old Roman temple. The Inquisition had his headquarters there. You know, at any rate, he suggests you leave now. You have very little time before the wolves arrive." "Wolves? You mean Orion's pack?" Hades flicked his hands. "The ghost of Brother Paloan disappeared, my son. My son, what are you attempting? Shall I travel across the world carrying the statue of Athena? It may well destroy you." "Thanks for the encouragement." Hades placed his hands briefly on Niko's shoulder. Niko didn't like to be touched, but somehow this brief contact with his father felt reassuring, the same way the Chapel of Bones was reassuring like death. His father's presence was cold and often careless, but it was real, brutally honest, inescapably dependable. Niko found a sort of freedom in knowing that eventually, no matter what happened, he would end up at the foot of his father's throne. "I will see you again," Hades promised. I will prepare a room for you at the palace in case you do not survive." Perhaps your chambers would look good decorated with the skulls of monks. Now I can tell if you're joking. Hades' eyes glittered as his form began to fade. Then perhaps we are alike in some important ways. The god vanished. Suddenly the chapel felt oppressive. Thousands of hollow eyes, sockets staring at Niko. We the bones that are here await yours. He hurried out of the church, hoping he remembered the way back to his friends. That is the end of this chapter and this video. Bye everyone. Thanks for listening to this. But wait, before you go, if you love this video and like to see more, go down, like I said, click the blue. There you'll see a blue dot with a white P on it. Click it, okay? You'll find all my other hundreds of videos, okay? Please, and don't forget at the end, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in one of my other videos. Bye bye everyone, and thank you for listening to this. Bye.